Major funding for this program was provided by the Arkansas Department of Education through the Arkansas Ideas Initiative.
In Arkansas, it's always tough. The humidity's really high, the heat's there, and it makes it feel even worse. The worst times, as far as heat for Arkansas, are the times when it gets cloudy, it rains, and then the sun pops back out. The humidity's crazy high, and not only that, you've got the moisture evaporating and radiating off the ground to increase it and make the heat index feel even worse. And that's when you really got to watch the kids, and that's when your biggest problems occur.
The day of Kendrick's heat stroke kind of starts the day before because, we were new to Arkansas and we weren't paying attention really to the schedule, when football was going to start. During the night, Kendrick was awake a lot because he had allergies, and I gave him an allergy pill. And in the morning, I had to go to Atlanta, and I left for a flight at 4:30, and went and told Kendrick goodbye. He was sleeping at the time. As soon as I walked in the room, the phone rang, and it was his dad. He said, "Kendrick had an accident at football today." In my mind, I'm thinking, so he broke a bone, something, because he was a big kid. I really didn't think he'd get hurt at football, and I'm also thinking, well, I didn't think he'd be playing today. How could he get hurt? And his dad said, well, he had heat stroke. And again, I'm thinking, well, only old people have heat stroke. Why did Kendrick have heat stroke? Is he okay? And he said, well, they have him in intensive care for observation. And when he told me I needed to come home, then I knew that it was serious. I went to tell the people that I was working with that I needed to leave because my son was in the hospital. The people on the airline were so nice and so helpful, and made sure I was the first one off that flight. And I was able to get to Arkansas Children's Hospital. I remember when they brought him in on the stretcher, I didn't know what to expect, but he was very still, and they had equipment on the stretcher with him. Later I learned it was a drug-induced coma. They just had him very still because they didn't want him to move. And from there, they took him, of course, to intensive care. And I just had to wait. I really had no idea what was going on for about 2 hours until they had him stabilized. And then they told me how severe it was. I said goodbye to him that morning, thinking he wasn't even going to football practice. And I greet him at Arkansas Children's Hospital, not knowing if my son will survive the night. I had many, many questions, but what the doctor did tell me when I could talk to them is basically that Kendrick had heat stroke, which is a result of, for Kendrick, was not getting enough fluids to drink. And it was, the doctor described it to me like the car, you know, if you don't put oil in your car, your engine burns up. And that's what heat stroke did to Kendrick's body, is his body just burned up. And what we were seeing were the devastating effects of heat stroke on his body. Kendrick was in the hospital for 18 days. And during those 18 days, they told us he was going to die 3 different times. And I remember, well, at first they didn't know if he'd survive the night. It was a couple days later that they told us he probably wouldn't make it again, and that we needed to tell the family that he probably wasn't going to make it through the night. It was just one long day that lasted 24 hours until his body could take it no longer. I knew when the doctor pulled me in and said, "You have to let him go," that they could no longer do anything more for him. And he told me I had to say goodbye to my son.
The body always strives to maintain a body temperature of around 37 degrees Celsius, which is 98.6 Fahrenheit. And that is the normal set point that the brain, hypothalamus in particular, tries to maintain, regardless of what we're doing. Brendan McDermott, I'm a professor here in the Graduate Athletic Training Education program at the University of Arkansas. Metabolic heat production comes in terms of exercise. So every time we contract a muscle, essentially we're producing heat. So the more muscle contraction, more intense exercise, the more powerful contraction is, or the more repeated muscle contractions we have, the more heat is going to be produced. So if it's intense exercise, again, in the environmental extremes that athletes participate in, in August, September timeframe around here, when it's very hot and humid, your hypothalamus thermoregulatory center is overwhelmed with metabolic heat production and the surrounding environment, creating an environment in which we can't control our body temperature anymore. With heat illnesses, there's a continuum of severity, but that doesn't necessarily mean you need to progress through one to get to the next level of severity.
There are different levels of heat illness. You have heat syncope, where a fainting occurs, which can happen when your osmotic pressure changes and you faint. So the treatment for that is to raise the legs, and will change the body's osmotic pressure and will allow them to recuperate. You have muscle cramping, which is a major sign of dehydration.
Those typically happen in the absence of an elevated core temperature, but they can happen with an elevated core temperature. So heat cramps typically happen where you get an involuntary contraction that is sustained in a muscle that you can't relax. And it's considered a heat illness because most often heat cramps do happen when it's hot and or humid or after long bouts of exercise. And we've lost a lot of sweat via evaporation, and our electrolyte stores may be down as well. At the same time, we're also fatigued, so it creates kind of a perfect storm for muscle cramping. The next, moving up the continuum, is heat exhaustion. And heat exhaustion is essentially diagnosis by exclusion, meaning if you rule things out and you're really fatigued with profuse sweating in the heat, you've been exercising in the heat, it's basically termed heat exhaustion. because we can't really point to anything else that may have caused that overwhelming fatigue. You'll get nauseous, you'll get dizziness, you may collapse for a brief instant. There won't be any lasting central nervous system dysfunction with that. And there's no real lasting damage that occurs with heat exhaustion. Typical healing time for that or recovery from that is 24 to 48 hours.
If it's just heat exhaustion, then usually just cold fluids, getting their temperature down, hydrating them, which the emergency room can do aggressively, can make all the difference. But they still need to get to medical care rapidly.
If you move above that and have exertional heat stroke without proper recognition and treatment is a potentially fatal condition. So if you delve into exertional heat stroke, what happens in the body is that essentially you've reached a critical temperature where cells in the body no longer can survive. So typical body temperature that this happens is about 104 to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Beyond that, when our temperature continually rises and our thermoregulatory center becomes overwhelmed, we'll have major signs and symptoms, and it will lead to multi-organ dysfunction and essentially death, again, if it's not recognized and treated appropriately.
Basically, the enzyme systems within the body shut down, and that real metabolically active organs like the liver and the kidneys shut down because they're just not able to do their work at that high temperature that the proteins actually fall apart. The kidneys are at high risk of shutting down, both from just the temperature, but also from muscle breakdown. When the muscles break down, they release poisons that have to be cleared by the kidneys, which already are not working well, and they frequently will just jam up and shut down. The liver notoriously also becomes affected. It has great ability to rejuvenate, and so it can get well, but liver failure is also a big problem in these kids. The brain can also become involved. They can have seizures, they become comatose, and oftentimes will have brain damage because of the high temperature.
In terms of exertional heat stroke recognition and then that progressing into treatment, in terms of recognizing it, exertional heat stroke is diagnosed with two things. You need central nervous system dysfunction, which is categorized by collapse, coma, somebody not acting appropriately, they may be unconscious, it's obvious CNS dysfunction, and at the same time an elevated core body temperature above at least 104 degrees Fahrenheit.
Tyler was a football player that had collapsed during football practice, and it was August.
I was at work, and a friend of mine called and said they had heard the ambulance go to the school. So they were close enough to drive over there and said that they had saw Tyler on the ground and they were talking to him. So they'd called me and said that he had got too hot and was taken to the hospital. I called my wife and told her that I was on the way to the hospital and
said Tyler's got too hot at practice and they've taken him to the ER. And so, in the back of our minds, we were just thinking, okay, we're gonna get to the ER and he's gonna be sitting there with the IV fluids, something like that.
When we got there, one of my close friends that works in the ER met me at the door and wanted to know what happened at the field. And I said, I don't know. I've heard he got too hot and why? And the look on his face was terror. He let me go back and what I saw was horrifying.
He was just really scared and shaken, and they were trying to cool him down and pump water through to cool his kidneys and his stomach, and we were just trying to talk to him and calm him down, and it was pretty bad. It took about up to an hour to get the helicopter there.
When he arrived, his temperature was almost unmeasurably high. He was transported by our transport team. At one point, his temperature was recorded to be 108 degrees.
I didn't really know what heat stroke was. They told us that he had suffered a heat stroke, but when they told us his temperature was normal, it didn't hit me that anything else was wrong. So I figured he had suffered a heat stroke, he was better now, we'd spend a few days and go home. But that's not what happened.
When he got here, he was still febrile, but by then he was intubated, and over the next few days went into renal failure, and basically all his organs quit working.
He was listed second by second, basically. And so they were just trying to focus on keeping him cooled and checking his vitals and everything else.
It was a long, scary night. Nobody slept. We just sit there and waited. They would come in and give us news as they could.
It is felt that part of the problem with Tyler's temperature being so high was that it was high for a very long time before he got cooled down. And he had suffered much more organ failure that wasn't reversible.
You know, they tell you it's a heat stroke, but when they checked his vitals and stuff at the county, the local hospital, he was not dehydrated one bit. So you're trying to sink all that in and think, well, how in the world, you know, would you have a heat stroke and still be completely hydrated?
The longer we were there, it kept getting harder and harder to see the end of the road.
They asked us, let us decide how we wanted to handle it. We told them, you know, we want you to take all of his things off his arms and tubes out of his nose because he hates them, you know, just go ahead and take them off. I want him comfortable.
We ultimately decided that we would leave it up to Tyler. So me and my wife went in, talked to him, and just told him we were so proud of him and that he had fought longer than most people give him a chance to.
Everything shut down but his heart. His heart was the only organ that wasn't affected besides his lungs.
We told him to squeeze our hand if he was ready to just rest and stop the fight. And he squeezed both our hands.
And it was hard to hear that last beat.
My name is Kevin Kelly. I'm the head football coach and athletic director at Pulaski Academy High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. You know, you look for things like loss of sweating. You know, they're not sweating anymore. You know, if it's August and they're not sweating, you've got a kid that needs to sit down and get something to drink. If they're goosebumps, chill bumps, a kid that feels nauseous, a kid that's a little bit dizzy, a kid that's complexion changes, you know, a kid that's really, you can tell if a kid's really struggling in a drill or struggling in running plays or conditioning or things like that. Look at their eyes, you know, are their pupils dilated on their eyes, are they constricted, you know, it basically just changes from their normal look or something to look for.
Confusion, not really giving you much effort, their color changes, they get real pale, they don't respond. They may start to vomit a little bit, and just usually they just feel real sick.
Hopefully, on site, there's appropriate medical staff and a certified athletic trainer should evaluate the patient ask them questions, what's going on, and also get an overall look and feel for that person. And most often, certified athletic trainers are going to know their athlete, so they'll know if they're not acting like themselves.
We're around these kids so much. We know their mannerisms and how they act and how they behave. If a kid's changes in behavior or something for me, and you don't see that out there, something to look for. But if you've got a kid that's normally an outgoing kid, and all of a sudden he's quiet and not saying anything for a little bit of time, that's something to go up and at least check him and say, hey, you okay? Because you never can tell. Maybe he's got problems that day with his parents or his girlfriend or whatever, but maybe there's something physically going on.
Pull him aside, give him a rest, maybe give him some fluids, and do more of a thorough history about the predispositions that may have been leading into this. So, how have you been feeling the last couple days? Have you been getting sleep? What are you feeling today? Are you feeling really hot? Are you really fatigued? Taking vital signs would be a good thing to do at this point in time. Maybe blood pressure, even just assessing heart rate to find out how they're functioning on that day. Those sorts of things I think are big first courses of action. If you can and it's available, move them to the shade or an air-conditioned environment while they are kind of recovering at the same time. With exertional heat stroke, sometimes patients will actually have what's termed like the lucid interval. So they'll actually look like they're acting appropriately, even though they later on won't even remember what was happening because they're in a kind of a fog and a state of not really functioning ideally. And that is that central nervous system dysfunction kind of happening simultaneously. So if somebody's asking them questions, they may be acting appropriately, but their answers may not make sense.
Really the most important thing is that if you think one of the athletes has developed heat stroke or has collapsed, is to get them cooled off as fast as possible. And that means on the field, and then call EMS, then call your ambulance, because that time it takes for the ambulance to get there is wasted time. And so if they can be getting cooled in the meantime, that makes a big difference.
The number one thing with treating heat illness is to get out of the sun. Remove them from practice immediately, get them in the shade, determine if it's heat or if they have an outlying condition, treat it for what it is.
Get him in a cool spot and get him shaded and out of the heat immediately. Take his helmet off, remove his shoulder pads, and obviously we got watering stations around, and even under the bleachers, and we got big fans set up so there's air constantly moving, blowing air on them.
When it comes to heat issues and head and neck issues, you don't have to ask permission. You just go ahead and do the right thing, because nothing's more important than that young man. If you're a coach, you have to do it. If it messes up your little practice, that's fine.
The first thing, the most important thing, and it can't be stressed enough, is if a kid does go down, get them cooled down as soon as possible. And the best way is submerge them in an ice bath. When you do ice baths and ice submersion, what you do is the water's gonna be a certain temperature. When a kid gets in the water, his body is obviously a lot higher temperature than the water. Say you submerge a kid at 42 degrees Fahrenheit, the water is. When he gets in there, his body's radiating heat. Immediately, the water immediately surrounding him, if it's stagnant water, if you're sitting in a pool of water, that water right around him will warm up. So you want to stir the water. We have a boat paddle. You stir the water so that water right around their body is, it does raise in temperature, but when you swirl the water around, you get new water on them and it continues cooling the body back down to that temperature. At the same time, the level of the level of the water will rise slowly, and you keep continuously measure that, and you dump more ice in to lower it back down so you can keep it there.
The entire body outside of the head should be immersed. So maximum surface area up against the water is ideal. That's not to say too though that their head could be, I've seen people in the past as well use cold towels that are kind of rotated on the head. So water can essentially be running down their head, or you can squeeze out something or have some sort of bucket there and kind of pour that over their head if it's directed to the side, making sure they're still breathing, obviously. But that, again, more surface area of the body that's exposed to that cold water, you're maximizing your treatment.
The importance of cooling them so quickly is the fact that you have about a 15-minute window of cooling the body. After that, the elevated core temp can start to cause deterioration of the vital body organs and systems. It's an emergency response. You start cooling, you call EMS, and when EMS gets here, they assume responsibility, get the patient or athlete to the emergency room.
Definitely there needs to be, in terms of treatment after something is recognized, even initially, there needs to be a good communication about an emergency action plan and everybody be on the same page. So a coach or an athletic trainer on site needs to be weary of these things, basically have it specifically stated in an emergency action plan that a treatment protocol is going to be in place. Who's going to call 911? Where are they getting transported to? On site, where are they going to be transported to? Because with exertional heat stroke, cooling should actually take place on site. Again, the gold standard for treatment for exertional heat stroke is cold water immersion. So there should be a plan to implement appropriate treatment within 15 to 20 minutes of recognition.
We require an emergency action plan for every school activity, whether it be a practice venue or a game venue. The components of an emergency action plan vary from venue to venue and from sport to sport. And we've put together a sample athletic health care plan guide that our schools can utilize that gives a pretty comprehensive list of things that they can have for each sport and each venue. Of course, the number one thing is to have a cell phone available and ready to go, to know who the contact people are in charge of that response plan, and to have that communicated with our local responders. The requirements that we want everybody to have in the emergency action plans for preseason practice in the summer, whenever you have high temperatures, of course, is number one, to have a cool water immersion tub available at that site. And that varies from school to school and practice venue to venue. Some practice next to their field house and they can have a hot tub ready to go with water and ice available. If they're not very close to their locker room, then they can have a tub available in a shade tree or under a tent that can be available. And those are especially important in the first 2 weeks of practice. And of course, we like to say through the research that we've done through our Sports Medicine Advisory Committee that anytime your temperature is above 90 degrees to have that available. Of course, the things that you can do is also shorten practice and do different things, walkthroughs and so forth, more extended breaks and water breaks to help with that as well.
In terms of an environmental temperature, I don't think you could come up with a specific standard to say above, 80 degrees, I would begin worrying. It is multifactorial leading into something as serious as exertional heat stroke. It's kind of a perfect storm of events that end up simultaneously occurring, leading to the ultimate compromise of thermoregulatory system at that instant.
It may not be necessarily that hot outside, but if the humidity levels are very high, it really just drains all our energy and the moisture from our kids, and so we have to work around that.
In the north, they can see it when the temperatures hit the 80s. Usually down south, it takes a little bit more than that because people are better acclimated. But you can see it as low as the 80s, but certainly the 90s, and absolutely when the temperatures are in the hundreds.
Humidity levels are very important to watch and to monitor. There's different apps that you can use, a wet globe that you can utilize. And I think the key, though, is any time that you feel as though that the temperature is at a point where your student athletes are going to be compromised because of their acclimatization or lack thereof, that practice has to be modified, and you have to make sure you have those plans, procedures in place to make sure you can respond to a healthcare crisis.
In terms of football, you have actually multiple areas of thermoregulatory compromise. Again, sweat evaporation is the most efficient way that humans thermoregulate and dissipate heat to the environment. So football creates the context that's kind of, again, the perfect storm.
Well, you put on a helmet and it's 3 or 4 pounds. You put on a set of shoulder pads, that's 2 or 3 pounds. You put on a jersey on top of that, then you got undergarments that you wear to keep your shoulder pads from chafing. Then you're wearing a girdle with all the pads in it and knee pads. I mean, you put all that on and it's 105 degrees outside. The surface temperature is 130. Your body temperature goes up quickly.
We have shoulder pads that create a microenvironment up against the skin of 100% humidity. We can't evaporate sweat when it's 100% humid. So all that skin contact essentially is not thermoregulating. Same type of thing goes with the helmet. Helmet construction has gotten better over the last few years, but it's still inhibiting some thermoregulatory function in that case. So anytime we've got any sort of barriers to evaporation, it's going to essentially compromise thermoregulation for that body part.
Exertional heat stroke is not a football-only incident. In August of 2013, at Springdale Harbor, they had a cross-country runner. Everybody thinks, hey, cross-country runners are in shape. They sent this 17-year-old athlete to the emergency room after being cooled in a cold tub because while she was in cross-country practice, her coach noticed that she started wobbling and acting funny while she was running and pulled her off of the course.
Those of you that know swimming, almost every muscle in your body is contracting, so you're producing heat. And even though you're immersed in 84 degree or 86 degree water, it's still basically sealing in the body so that you can't dissipate heat where, our bodies may be used to 73 degrees and air conditioning and that sort of thing. So can it happen in the water? Yes. Essentially, your environment is your environment. So whether it's indoors or outdoors, honestly, indoors may be inhibitory to thermoregulation, as wind and airflow actually will help thermoregulation out. And that's one of the ways that we can essentially dissipate heat. Now, indoors or outdoors, it doesn't matter. It really comes down to what is the ambient temperature and what is the humidity and what is the airflow and or sun exposure. Well, human physiology is human physiology. So whether you're playing in the band or you're participating in intense high-level football activities, you have typically very high or extreme environmental conditions, and you have exercise. Whenever you team those up, that's two major components that will contribute to the onset of heat illness.
Marching band is very demanding. It's a very physical activity. In fact, in many places it's called a sport, and in many areas of the country it's a physical education credit. So it's very physically demanding. The drum line and the sousaphones are our biggest challenge, and oftentimes when it just gets really hot, we'll often set those on the ground and try to do most of our drills without those instruments on their body.
It's still human physiology, and it's still the environmental extremes. I did hear of practices in the past too, being in Georgia and Tennessee, of band participating in the afternoon in August for 3 hours in a parking lot on the first day. And yes, they said at one of the years they called the ambulance 5 times on the first day.
Will was lightheaded. He was having double vision. He was having problems at practice. And his coaches pulled him off the field and, made him go sit in the shade, made him drink a lot of water. And that night, the coaches admonished all the players, you need to get sleep, you need to go to bed early, you need to eat breakfast, you need to eat lunch, you need to drink a lot of water throughout the day. So Will's heat stroke was probably already in the works long before he went to practice on Friday.
It was a cool, cloudy day, probably one of the coolest days we had in August. It was the second week of August, I think, right around there. And we had practiced all summer in the heat. We practiced 1:30 to 3:30, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, in June and July, to keep the kids acclimated to the heat. This was one of the cooler days, I would say, that we had had. But then what happened was it rained. And then when it rained, the clouds went away and the sun came out, and the heat index went really, really high. We were at the very, very end of practice and called together to come to a knee, and that's when Will collapsed and had his heat stroke. And at the time, you don't know that it's a heat stroke.
When I went down, it was You know, it was in the middle of the day. We had just got done doing up down, so you know, I was just kind of stumbling over. Our certified athletic trainer Todd Ross was out there, and you know, he kind of went over. You know, everyone thought I just kind of passed out. You know, they just thought like, all right, hey, he got too high. You know, he's just laying down. He's trying to catch his breath. Not Todd.
I knew it had to be something with the heat, so first thing was we flipped him over. First thought was heat syncope, which can happen when your osmotic pressure changes and you faint. So the treatment for that is to raise the legs. We raised his legs, he did not come to, so we immediately started to cool his body and get him ready to be transported inside because we did not currently have a cold tub set up.
My husband and I were, it was in the afternoon in Canada. We were sitting outside with some friends and we received a phone call from one of the parents of another player. And they called and said, Will went down at practice and we're going to take him to the hospital as a precautionary measure.
And we're moving this, it's essentially a giant blue deer stand that somebody had donated. We were going to use it for filming for the year. So we had to pick that up from one side of the field and just, you know, inch by inch, just haul it to the other side.
No one knew it was real serious, or at least we didn't. What we were informed was not that it was serious at all.
And then after we got done moving that, I just remember my coach just saying, all right, guys, go get it padded up. And that's the last thing I remember before I was waking up 10 days later in Children's Hospital.
My dad was way shaken up. He had gotten to Baptist Hospital, and when he drove up, one of the EMTs met him and said, you know, is your grandson the football player that just came in? And he said, yes. He said, you better get in there. It doesn't look good. He may not make it.
As a kid, you know, the one thing when you're just, you know, when you're like in some kind of pain or you're in a place you don't want to be, the only thing you want is your mother.
We kept getting, you know, updates, and we knew that he was in a coma. This was a medically induced coma, and that was for his benefit to try to cut down on functions of his body so his body could heal what was damaged. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, Dr. Moss from Arkansas Children's Hospital called us, and she told us everything that was going on, what the plan was, what to expect when we came there, what he would look like. She spent probably 45 minutes with us, really going over everything.
He was on the ventilator and his kidneys actually shut down also, but he was able to get well and improve.
We get to the hospital and we walk into the ICU floor, and it is complete chaos. We walked into the room and our son is in a room by himself. It is a room full of machines. He's hooked up to probably 4 very large machines. He has tubes coming out of everywhere. His mouth, his nose, his arms. He's hooked up to all kinds of wires, and he's humongous. He has been filled with so much fluid that he is swollen and he is so big, and he's in a coma.
Dialysis is probably one of the worst things you can go through because it's literally, you're sitting in a bed next to the dialysis machine while it's filtering out your blood, and all you can do is just sit there. You have your friends and family there to be with you, but you know, all you want to do is just, you know, lie down and just try to sleep through it because it's a 4 to 5 hour process.
They told us from the get-go that they thought Will had been taken care of in time, that he would survive.
He was actually cooled at the site of the football practice by his trainer.
At that point, he had pretty severe liver damage, and his liver was not functioning. His kidneys were functioning. They did not know if his intestines were functioning, but his lungs and heart and brain seemed okay. Will's first words were "press restore." He liked to play video games, and I think at that point in time he was playing some computer video game called World of Warcraft, something like that. And when you would die in that game, or when you were seriously injured, you would press restore. Well, thankfully we were able to press restore for Will.
I don't think I was ever happier my entire life when I figured out I got to go home.
First thing is it is 100% preventable. And even if a kid does have a heat stroke, there's no reason for a kid to die because of heat stroke.
By far, the biggest thing that we can do to prevent exertional heat stroke is heat acclimatization. And the more we can foster heat acclimatization, the better off everybody is going to be, and the safer play will end up being anyways. And heat acclimatization is essentially the body's process that maximizes thermoregulatory function when we're exposed to hot and humid conditions.
When I was younger, you know, kids then, we didn't have video games and things like that. We played outside all the time. I think we were acclimated to the heat. I don't think that we had nearly as many heat-related illnesses, and it's not the kids' fault, but now they're inside. You know, I didn't have an air conditioner when I was growing up at times, and so you're used to the heat, and now I think when your body's not, it has to work harder to adjust to that, and it's burning calories, it's doing this, it's doing that, and you have some real problems in that relation.
I used to tell our players that if they would, and they, you know, they never did. There's a few of them who tried, but you know, in the summer when you're in your apartments, and most of them are here, or if you're at home, turn your air conditioning off. Open up your windows. You know, don't use air conditioning. When you get in your car, don't use air conditioning. Well, that, you know, I may as well have been talking to the wall, but and hopefully athletes are working out all summer long, so when they get to that first practice day, it's not such a big shock. They've already been there. They've been working out. This is just another day of working out.
I send out a letter usually the first week of July, which is 2 to 3 weeks prior to the first day of camp, and I ask the kids to begin a kind of a light workout routine, so to speak, and that's really just simply getting off the couch, out of the air conditioner, and going outside, spending some time outside, and about the times that we're going to practice, anywhere from 7 in the morning till noon, typically, and I ask them to go out if it's nothing more than walking around the block or riding their bike and start to acclimate themselves. The worst thing in the world for a kid to come to the summer band practice if they've been sitting on the couch in the air conditioner all summer for 2 to 3 months, and then all of a sudden they're going to be outside in the 80, 90, 100 degree heat with some humidity for 4 or 5 hours a day that makes it worse.
The first couple of days are very critical for us, and that's for every program. You really got to watch your kids really intensely to see who's having some issues.
It takes 10 to 14 days for us truly to heat acclimatize to a specific environment. So my recommendations would be over 14-day period, so 2 weeks total, get to the point of maximum exertion with maximal pads for up to 2, maybe 3 hours maximum.
In terms of restrictions for football two-a-days and preseason practice, we follow the recommendations of the Corey Stringer Institute and Dr. Doug Casa. The first 2 days of practice cannot wear any kind of contact equipment at all except for a helmet. And practice cannot be more than 3 hours in length. And of course, no contact whatsoever. And the purpose of hopefully trying to acclimatize these young athletes during those first 2 days of practice. The next 3 days of practice, the students are allowed to wear shoulder pads and helmets, and then any kind of contact can only be done with the blocking sleds or dummies. And again, the longest amount of practice they can have is 3 hours, and that would be for those next 3 days. So the first 5 days of practice, no more than 3 hours and no contact at all.
You have to spend more and more time outside in the heat, be active in the heat, and drink fluids, drink Gatorade, use Gator Lights, do whatever, but drink all the time. Non-alcoholic beverages, non-carbonated beverages, beverages without caffeine, but just drink all the time and get your body as saturated as possible with fluids.
There is a stereotype about coaches that they do see heat problems or wanting water as a sign of weakness. I personally think those are gone. You know, back in the days, I'm 44 years old, and when I was in high school, it was readily accepted that you only got 2 water breaks in a 2-hour practice. You know, we had buckets of salt tablets. and things like that to eat, and they were readily available. There wasn't a certain amount, take this amount, and nowadays that's complete opposite of what you are. We have water at every station. I think all football coaches do.
I always made sure that my kids, whenever I started coaching, had plenty of water because they function better. If they can't think, they can't function. And so, you know, one of the things that goes is the moisture. You know, they lose all their water and they can't function.
One of the most important things to prevent heat-related illness is to have adequate hydration, and even other type exercise-related problems like just dizziness and fainting that can occur with exercise. It's extremely important for the athlete to hydrate before, during, and after the exercise. There used to be a myth around no hydration before because you could get cramps, but the truth is you can prevent cramps by adequate hydration, and you can prevent a lot of serious problems like low blood pressure that occur with exercise. So plenty of hydration. We tell our kids in clinic to hydrate enough that their urine is clear. If they're not hydrating that much, they haven't hydrated. And they need to hydrate with water or sports drinks.
If we start out exercise dehydrated, or we're already down in terms of our fluid stores, during activity when we're actively sweating and losing fluid, it's very difficult to keep up with your own sweat rate when you're exercising in the heat. And then in terms of, during, that's what you would try and do is keep up with your own sweat rate. So you'd want to replace fluids the same rate or just under what you're actually losing. And then afterwards, you want to rehydrate as quickly as possible because you're facilitating recovery. And the quicker we can do that, the quicker we're ready for our next exercise bout. Some of the things that we may not think about and we may overlook sometimes too come into play where if athletes aren't necessarily taking care of themselves, these are other predispositions. So sleep deprivation or not sleeping well for a couple days prior to can actually compromise your thermoregulation. Any type of current illness, whether it be simply a sore throat or 1 or 2 bouts of diarrhea can dehydrate us. And we've seen in military data that a lot of exertional heat stroke patients, looking back, had an illness in the 2 to 3 days prior to the actual event of experiencing exertional heat stroke. So really reporting those things and talking about those things and being open are other things that you can end up doing.
Replenish all the bits that you've lost today and eat. You've got to make yourself good. You're just kind of snacking all day.
And you talk to your kids and about what they do the 22 hours outside of practice as opposed to the 2 hours they're inside of practice. You know, you can have them drink all the water you want and have them do all the right things, but if the 22 hours outside of practice they're not doing it and getting ready for that heat, especially in August, they're going to have some problems at times.
Aside from that, paying attention to the environment, once the heat index is over 100, you really have to start watching how much it is, and depending on the school's protocol, you can change practice schedules up, increase water breaks, limit the amount of practice time. You can change the amount of equipment that the athletes are wearing. Depending on what it is, we may go helmets only one day, or we may go no helmets, just out there practicing if it's too hot during August.
In my opinion, it's just not worth the life of a child or even taking a risk to put a child at risk in the heat. And so we don't really take any risk. If it starts to get hot, the heat bulb index gets up there pretty high. We come inside whether I'm done or not. And we just go to inside activities. There was a time even this last summer, because it was so hot, that we even canceled a half a day of rehearsal a couple of times. Not that I wanted to, but it was just simply too hot for the safety of the kids to be outside.
Parents are pretty important, and they have to be aware as well as we do what to look for in case there is a problem with their child, whether it be a heat illness or concussion or just a small injury.
What parents need to understand is that the prehydration is their responsibility. work with your athlete, make sure that you have the right liquids for them to prehydrate, and then when they're done with the physical activity, make sure that they're rehydrating.
Even with my younger two children, knowing Will had a heat stroke and living through what we lived through, it's still tough. Because now I have a 14-year-old who's about to start 9th grade, and he's just as big as his brother, and he wants to play. And, you know, basically we're all chasing him down the house and, you know, sit down, drink this water. How many glasses have you had today? You know, it's a lot of work. So you have to, you know, if you're going to have your children involved in sports, and I'm not talking just football, I'm talking soccer, baseball, cheer, band, you have them involved in something where they're going to be outdoors in the heat. You need to make certain you give them the best base to go out there. And if they're dizzy the day before or they've had problems, then, you know, you probably need to call the coach or the band director or the cheer leader, squad leader, and say they need to stay home today or they need to stay out of the heat.
We send our kids out to practice and to school and trust that the coaches are going to always do the right thing, and they have them for about 3 hours a day, and the other 21 hours is our responsibility as parents. So we need to know just as much, I think, as the coaches do to educate our kids so that this doesn't happen again.
The biggest thing to help us prevent heat stroke is make sure the kids get a good night's sleep, you know, 7-8 hours minimum. Make sure they get up, they eat a good breakfast, they're not skipping meals, they're eating a well-balanced meal, you know, fruits, vegetables, lots of carbs, because your body is going to use up a lot of energy just trying to keep itself cool.
It's everybody's responsibility to, you know, keep an eye on your students, the players, and, you know, if they're acting different, if you can tell that they're not feeling good. And parents, watch your kids. You know better than anybody how your kids should be acting. If they come home and they want to go to bed right away, or they're sluggish, or they're just not responding the way they normally do, it doesn't mean you have to go to the hospital in the emergency room, but get them to drink something. If they're not feeling well, let the coach know the next day. Look, he's been sick. Let's not, you know, he's not going to practice today, and that's fine. Missing a practice is not the end of the world. As much as coaches might think it is, I've been through about 10,000 practices. I'll guarantee you it's not the end of the world if you miss one. And you don't want it to be the end of the world for somebody who might have a heat stroke and pass away.
You know, the main idea of heat illness education is try to find a way to impact everyone involved with that student athlete, from themselves and their peers, and of course the coaches, the parents, the family at home, and then the medical community in that community. Everyone has to be on the same page to, number one, to identify the symptoms, and then number two, to know how to react.
We have these kids a maximum of 2 to maybe 3 hours a day, and they're with their parents the rest of the time. So you know, it's a privilege to be here and to coach those kids, and so they're giving us their complete trust with their children, and it's our duty to make sure that they get a child home that's not been damaged.
Certainly always have somebody that it's their assigned duty to help you watch those kids and keep them safe. There could be no feeling than to have a kid go down and potentially even die because they got too hot on the practice field.
With these tragedies, and, you know, at the same time with the miracle of what ended up happening with Will, you know, comes a lot of good things. And I think those things have been implemented in a lot of cases, and they're going to save lives on the tail end.
You know, there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to do for parents, and there's a lot of work to do for athletes, and a lot of work for coaches, and a lot of work for our medical professionals to make sure they know to cool first and then transport.
The parents are trusting the coaches, you know, but who's educating these parents? You know, I mean, if they're trusting these coaches, then how are the coaches trusting that the parents are taking care of their kids? you know, when they're at home.
Death from a heat stroke is preventable.
Education with heat awareness and heat stroke starts at home and it ends at home.
You know, all across the country is all it takes is the awareness and then the education and then stepping in to volunteer and help and make a difference to keep the athlete safe.